Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jeffrey Epstein Show. I'm your host, Bobbycapucci, and this is Daily Drop number 149. So I got my notes all together finally, and tomorrow I'm going to do the first segment about Santa Fe. And what I've decided to do, instead of doing one long marathon show of like an hour and a half or so, I'm going to break it up into 3 different shows. And tomorrow we'll do the first segment. Wednesday we'll do the second segment, and then Friday we'll do the third segment. And in each one of those segments we'll discuss what each one of the 3 sources had to say. And I just think it'll be more orderly if we do it that way. And also, if you want to go back and check it out later on and re-listen to it or share it with a friend or whatever, it's a little bit more organized, so somebody doesn't have to sit there for an hour and 30, hour and 40 minutes. I know people don't have that much time for the most part. Some of us do. I know some of us will sit around and listen to podcasts while we're working or driving or, whatever. But to make it easier to, distribute amongst your friends, or even for you to just come back and listen to the portion you wanted to listen to, make it easier that way. Break it up into 3 segments and do it like that. But tonight, before we get to all of that good stuff starting tomorrow, we have an article from the Daily Mail. And the headline is, Prince Andrew faces more lurid claims. New court evidence that he did meet with his teenage accuser, Virginia Roberts, despite claiming he had no recollection of sex trafficking victim, will be made public in a string of American lawsuits. And this article was written by Mark Hookham, and this is published, like I said, in the Daily Mail. So like usual, make sure you click on these links and you check out the pictures and follow some of the hyperlinks, etc., etc. So here we go, the article. Explosive new evidence undermining the Prince of Punk-Ass's claim that he did not know teenage trafficking victim Virginia Roberts is set to emerge in the United States, her lawyer claimed last night. That's huge, right? It's a big deal. And it's nice to know that there's going to be some evidence coming out here. And I've told you folks, I'm very confident that there are going to be dominoes to fall in this case in the year 2020. We see what's going on in the financial sector, and we see all of these CEOs that had even just a little bit to do with this case even, right? Like Jess Staley, he's not directly implicated in any of Epstein's trafficking crimes or anything like that, but yet he is under serious fire and he's going to go. There's zero doubt that he's out. Now, Glenn Dubin obviously is a whole different ball of wax. He's directly implicated by Virginia Roberts. And then you have Wexner, who has stepped down, and we all know his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, and we all know what he let occur, according to Maria Farmer, on his property. So we see the movement already with the corporate oligarchs getting toppled, and to hear David Boies coming out and saying that there's some more evidence that's going to really put the screws to the Prince of Punk-Asses, well, that's very promising, folks. And I'm very confident to say that we will see dominoes fall. Like, I won't go out on a limb here and say, oh, well, this person, that person, and this person are definitely going to jail, or I have no more information about that than you do. But in my gut, I really believe that there will be arrests in this case, and I think there'll be some significant arrests as well. Is it going to be everybody? When does the Justice Department work that way? When do they ever really swoop everybody up? Unless, of course, it's regular people engaging in a crime, then everybody goes to jail. But when it's these rich people, what they do is they have fall guys. They insulate themselves, and there's layer upon layer of, plausible deniability. But I think they screwed up this time, because I think too many people have the keys to the kingdom. I think too many people know exactly what was going on in this case. I think there are way too many people like Sarah Kellen Vickers who isn't really being talked about outside of our small circles, or Adriana Ross, or Leslie Groff, or all of these other women who were his lieutenants, who acted on his command and in cohesion with him and Ghislaine to carry out these disgusting attacks on these young girls. So I think with all of the people that have intimate knowledge knowledge of this, I think we're definitely going to see arrests, prosecutions, and we're going to see a bevy of people turning over on one another and ratting each other out because they aren't built for this life. These people are not built for this life. In an exclusive interview with the Mail on Sunday, David Boies said further evidence linking the Duke of York, aka the Prince of Punk Asses, with Miss Roberts will be made public as part of a string of civil lawsuits being brought in America by victims of serial pedophile Jeffrey Epstein. That's huge. It's big news because what it sounds like to me is we're going to get some sort of evidence dump here, some sort of information dump, court document dump, where it's going to name some people who were involved in this. His comments came after this newspaper last week revealed that a highly respected former Royal Protection officer has raised questions about Andrew's alibi for the night he allegedly had sex with Miss Roberts in London. And we talked about that, the Royal Protection officer who came out and was basically saying he wants his record so he could see if it matches up with what he thinks. And of course, we haven't seen any movement from the powers that be, because around the world, no matter what country you're in, and especially the Five Eyes of intelligence countries, well, we all know that the corruption is deep. And we all know that these unelected bureaucrats run around with unchecked power and are able to do things that would make your head spin if you had a full grasp of what was going on. Miss Roberts claims that she was flown to London by Epstein in March 2001 when she was 17 and coerced into having sex with the Duke, aka the Prince of Punk Asses. This was the first of 3 alleged sexual encounters with the prince. Andrew, 60, has categorically denied the claims, and in November he told Newsnight's Emily Maitlis, "I have no recollection of ever meeting this lady, none whatsoever." Yeah, no, we get it. We understand. Not only do you have a sweating condition, you got a traumatic brain injury while you were in the Falklands, while you were busy, rubbernecking, and that's why you can't remember, and that's why you can't sweat, and you're a big military hero, and, everybody's foolish for thinking that you could ever be involved in this because, you're an honorable man. So honorable that you flew across the pond to break up with your sick, disgusting, pedophile best friend, Jeffrey Epstein. Give me a break. Nobody's buying it, buddy. Nobody. No recollection of ever meeting her. Okay. But Mr. Boies, who with his colleague Sigrid Macaulay is representing Miss Roberts and 7 more of Epstein's victims, last night accused the Queen's second son and his advisors of continuing to dissemble. There is other evidence that will come out that undercuts his assertion that he didn't know Virginia had not been with her, he said. Referring to this newspaper's revelations last week and another report claiming Andrew was seen kissing a young blonde woman on Epstein's Caribbean island, he added, "The evidence that has come out in the last week is important, but it is not all that is going to be coming out." See, folks, this is what I was talking about. We know that there's new evidence that we've heard from Mr. Scully, and we've heard from the witness that has come forward in the Virgin Islands to Denise George, saying that he or she, I don't remember if the witness was a male or a female, saw Andrew groping girls there. So, we know that there's that evidence already exists. But what Mr. Boies is saying here is that there's more that's getting ready to drop. More evidence that's going to really put Andrew in a bad light. Any evidence will pile pressure on Andrew to cooperate with an FBI probe into Epstein's sex trafficking ring. In a blistering interview, Mr. Boies also said, Prince Andrew faces the prospect of further damning revelations about his relationship with Epstein and claims about Miss Roberts being made public between now and June as part of a slew of civil cases against the multi-million-pound estate of the disgraced financier, pedophile, who was found dead in his New York jail cell last August after his arrest on child sex trafficking charges. He had previously served 13 months in jail in 2008 for procuring a child for prostitution. Again, I really dislike that language. How can you procure a child for prostitution. It is impossible, okay? No sane individual would look at a child being forced into having sex with somebody and call them a prostitute. It just goes to show you how absolutely ridiculous some of the laws on the books are, folks. Granted, I know it's been changed now in Florida, but why was that a law on the books in the 21st century? Are you kidding me right now? What's next? You can go break a switch off from the tree in the backyard if it's no bigger than your thumb and beat your significant other? What the hell kind of law is this? Last month, U.S. Magistrate Judge Deborah Freeman, who is overseeing lawsuits brought by 16 women against the Epstein estate, ordered a so-called fact discovery before cases are brought to trial. Huge deal, folks. A fact discovery is where everything's laid out on the table and laid bare for everybody to see. And the discovery phase is why most of these people try and settle out of court. They don't want to go to the discovery phase, and they don't want to be put on blast. They don't want the public to see what the other side has, especially if it's damning. And that's why you'll see these huge settlements usually. But I have to tell you, I think a few of these ladies who were abused by Epstein and who survived his abuse are going to go all the way to the mattresses with this. I think they want discovery phase. They want nothing to do with the fund that is going to be set up supposedly. And believe me, I'm not speaking for any of these ladies. I'm just saying that it looks to me like some of these ladies are really just, at this point, they're willing to go all the way. And if that's the case, and it really does get to discovery phase, there's going to be a huge dump of documents in discovery, a huge dump. So much of a dump that what happened in Preska's court probably won't even matter, to be honest with you, because it'll be just as damning of what comes out here. This means the victims' lawyers will be able to present new evidence, demand the publication of previously undisclosed documents, and even quiz alleged co-conspirators accused of helping Epstein procure young women and underage girls for his sex ring. That's going to be... Can you imagine? You imagine what those days in court will be? I'll tell you this much right now. If and when this occurs, if this occurs and it's an open courtroom, I will certainly fly to wherever it's going on and sit in on it and report from the court, because this will be a huge deal. This will be a very huge deal in the case. And in my opinion, this could be a turning point for the survivors to see the justice they deserve, and for people who are following the case to see that the corruption is going to be squashed, because nobody has any faith in the Justice Department right now. Nobody on either side of the aisle, really, when you talk about politics, or if you're just talking about the common man, the independent voter, which most people are. People have zero faith in the Justice Department, and this case right here embodies the reason why. Judge Freeman said this process should be completed by June 10th. Mr. Boies claims this will lead to the publication of new evidence showing that the Duke knew Miss Roberts, now 36, and going by her married surname, and excuse me, lost my train of thought there. Mr. Boies claims this will lead to the publication of new evidence showing that the Duke knew Miss Roberts, now 36. I think the mistake that he, Prince Andrew, aka the Prince of Punk Asses, made was thinking that somehow this evidence wouldn't dribble out, and now, of course, that's exactly what's happening. The Prince of Punk Asses is sufficiently recognizable that more and more of this evidence comes out, and I think it just puts him in a terrible position, and one that could have been avoided, at least in part, if he had simply been more forthright and forthcoming initially. A judge in New York in some of the cases has set a discovery cutoff for June, so I think a lot of this will come out between now and June. Asked what the new evidence is, he replied, "I can't get into this, but all I can say is that there will be more evidence coming out." And we really haven't heard from David Boies. We really haven't heard too much from David Boies as he's been embroiled in his battle with Alan Dershowitz. It's mainly been Sigrid McCauley who has been acting as the lead here for Virginia Roberts and talking about the case, etc., etc. So it's significant to hear from Mr. Boies in this right now at this point in time, considering what's obviously coming down the pipe. He did, however, claim that new evidence will emerge showing that Prince Andrew visited Epstein's vast Zorro Ranch near Santa Fe, New Mexico. The New York Times last year claimed that Epstein told scientists that he hoped to seed the human race with his DNA by impregnating women at the ranch. Folks, it certainly has legs. It's another thing that was talked about down there, how there was always the rumor of royalty showing up at the ranch, and a special guest would be showing up at the ranch. And one of my sources said that it was, the same sort of deal like when Clinton went down there. And it's funny to see them talk about that in this article. Now, my source didn't have direct firsthand knowledge of Andrew being at the ranch. I want to be clear about that. I'm not saying that's what my source said. My source talked about Clinton, but it's, the source did talk about how there was rumors from other people that he worked with and knew about royals going there, Prince Andrew, and people that were on that level. And I don't know if that means there were other royals from maybe other countries, maybe people from the Middle East or something like that. The source really didn't get into all of that. But I can confirm for sure that there was secondhand talk about, the Prince of Punk Asses going to Zorro Ranch. There's no doubt about that. Several of his accusers claim they were raped there. In November, it emerged that a former housekeeper at the ranch had claimed Prince Andrew spent 3 days there in 2001, where she said he kept company by an unnamed beautiful female doctor. Yep, we read that article. Remember, that was one of the articles we read a few months back. And, it was supposedly some sort of neurosurgeon, I believe, that was keeping him company, if I recall correctly. And some kind of tea for his libido. It's so crazy. It's such a crazy situation to think about. And, I honestly believe that there are a lot more witnesses that are willing to come forward if the legacy media would just do their job and cultivate these sources and make sure that the sources are comfortable coming out to them, so they know that they're not going to get their identity blown wide open. I think that the legacy media would have a lot more to offer the story if they would really just get involved in doing stuff like that. But for some reason, it doesn't seem like they're down there talking to the people who matter, people that worked at the airports and the regular folks like I did. I wish I had the resources that the legacy media had. If I had the resources that the legacy media had, I would have stayed down there for a month and a half, and I really would have got going, really would have got busy. Imagine if you have the resources that the New York Times has. They could send you on assignment for however long in an indeterminable amount of time. And you imagine what you could find out, but they don't care enough about this story. They're way too busy with their political wrestling matches going on right now. That's what they care about. They don't care about justice for survivors. They don't care about justice for the people who suffered at Epstein's hands. So it's definitely the talk down there in Santa Fe. It's everybody knows. It was like such an open secret, Mr. Boies, one of the most prominent lawyers in the United States, accused Andrew and people speaking on his behalf of attacking Miss Roberts' credibility. Oh, they've been doing that forever. And we know that that's their MO. That's how they got their boy Jeffrey off in the first place, by attacking the girl's credibility because, they talked about drinking, or they talked about maybe kissing a boy on their MySpace page, so they must be reprehensible little liars. That's basically what they were saying, and the prosecution just went right along with it, getting dog-walked by these morons. And here we are, all these years later, and all of these other girls who had to suffer at his hands because these scumbags didn't do their jobs. An unnamed supporter of Andrew last year claimed that a photograph showing the Duke with his arm wrapped around Miss Roberts' bare waist, which was taken in Miss Maxwell's home in Belgravia, central London, in 2001 was fake, and that Miss Roberts' story was a fantasy. You notice they don't put their name to it, right? You notice nobody's putting their name to that statement. Nobody's saying, oh, well, it was me. I came out and said that. I'm the one who's protecting Andrew here. So I bet it wasn't even somebody. It was Andrew probably put out that statement for himself. He probably has some sort of, pseudonym that he goes by when he's, trying to be discreet, and he probably put it out under that name. He was like, all right, make sure you run this and say that one of my friends is defending me. It's ridiculous. What sort of human being, what sort of, anyone who's paying attention with a brain in their head would actually think that that picture is fake? There is zero chance that that picture is fake. Mr. Boies added, at some point, I think the Prince of Punk Asses and the people who are speaking on his behalf need to recognize that continuing to dissemble is not only unsustainable, but counterproductive. He is worse off today than he would have been if he had simply faced up to whatever happened. Of course, Buckingham Palace declined to comment last night. Wow, 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 well, wow, wow, wow. I just don't even understand how Prince Andrew thinks or thought he was going to get away with all of this. It boggles my mind that he really thought that he was going to be able to get away with all of this. So at the end of the article, there is a little an add-on, and the headline of the add-on is, "Why are Prince Andrew's lawyers such a secret?" Lawyer for his alleged victim, Virginia Roberts, criticizes the Duke for refusing to name the legal firm representing him. The lawyer acting for Prince Andrew's alleged victim, Virginia Roberts, last night lambasted the Duke for refusing to name the legal firm representing him. That's kind of weird, right? Why doesn't he just name whoever his lawyer is? I'm telling you right now, I guarantee you it's going to have something to do with Dershowitz down the road. I know, I just have a feeling that I didn't take my jaws off Dershowitz is going to be involved in this somehow. This guy, he loves this. He lives for this. And he knows that it's, about his own self-sustainment at this point, because he's caught up in all of this. But I just have the funniest feeling in the world that Dershowitz is going to show up and be involved in this somehow. Buckingham Palace has repeatedly refused requests from journalists to identify the lawyers working on behalf of the Queen's second son, and astonishingly, even Miss Roberts' U.S. lawyer says he is in the dark. That's crazy. He doesn't even have somebody if they have something to send, who do they send it to? Buckingham Palace? To Amanda Thirsk? I mean, who do they send it to? We don't really know who his lawyers are, David Boies said last night. We know he has lawyers, and we know he has PR people, but exactly who they are and who is doing it officially and who is doing it unofficially, we don't know. They are not, as far as I know, saying. The silence comes despite a clamor from U.S. investigators for Andrew to provide information about pedophile Jeffrey Epstein. The Prince of Punk Asses has previously been represented by the London law firm Schillings. Royal sources, however, indicated that he has instructed another firm with extensive U.S. legal expertise. Oh boy, I can only imagine what sort of team this guy is drumming up at this point. Mr. Boies added, this attempt to shroud everything in secrecy and hope somehow it will go away is, I think, misguided and ultimately counterproductive. This is not going to go away. This is not something that if you simply ignore it, people will lose interest in it. David Boies is spot on right there, huh, folks? I just heard all of you standing up and cheering, because there's zero chance that any of us are losing interest in this, right? Zero chance we're going away. Zero chance our fat mouths are closing anytime soon. The FBI, U.S. prosecutors, and lawyers for Epstein's victims, survivors, want to speak to Andrew as part of investigations into the disgraced financier, pedophiles, sex trafficking ring. Miss Roberts claims she was trafficked to London and coerced into having sex with the prince on 3 occasions in London, New York, and the U.S. Virgin Islands. The Duke has categorically and repeatedly denied her claims. Last month, U.S. Attorney Jeffrey Berman said prosecutors and the FBI had contacted the Prince of Punkass's representatives but had received no reply. Andrew was said to be angry and bewildered about the claims, saying he had not been approached to speak about the case. But in the increasingly bitter war of words, Mr. Boies supported Mr. Berman's account, adding, "We have continued to be met with an absolute refusal to cooperate in our investigation. An absolute refusal to be interviewed." That's par for the course for what we know of Andrew. He really thought that he was going to get away with this. He thought that interview with Emily Maitlis was going to be the end of it, and nobody would ever question him again. Boy, was he wrong. Mr. Boies also said that the whereabouts of Ghislaine Maxwell remain unknown. The socialite co-conspirator disappeared from public life around 2016, although Prince Andrew told BBC's Newsnight that he saw her as recently as last spring-summer, saying she was here doing some rally. The prince knows where she is. They're still in contact. You don't think that these two are talking? Come on. They're very close. Prince Andrew and Ghislaine Maxwell are super close, and their friendship goes all the way back to their childhood, according to a source that I've spoken to. Mr. Boies added, "We heard she was in California, the south of France, Israel, the UK. We have not been able to establish any credible evidence of where she actually is." Mr. Boies said our story last week that a former Royal Protection officer had raised questions about Andrew's alibi for the night he allegedly had sex with Miss Roberts in London in March 2001 was significant. He added, "All the evidence that has come out is supportive of what Virginia has said. 100%. I've been saying that since the jump, man, since Jump Street on this one. Look, I don't know how many times I have to say it. I'm not a believe all women or believe all men kind of person. I'm skeptical in the best of times about everything. But when somebody is as reliable and as credible as Virginia Roberts has been from the very beginning of this, and as consistent as she has been, how can you not stop and look at the evidence? And if you truly do that, and you do it with unbiased goggles on, there is no way that you can come to any other conclusion than Virginia Roberts is telling the truth. And that there's been zero evidence supporting that she's lying in any of these cases. There's zero evidence to support that Prince Andrew, the Prince of Punkasses, is being truthful and Virginia is being dishonest. Because only one of them can be telling the truth in this case, right? And certainly the evidence backs up Virginia's account. He also urged Scotland Yard to reopen its investigation into the claims made by Miss Roberts, now 36. She made a criminal complaint against Epstein and Maxwell to the Met in July 2015, but in November 2016, Scotland Yard decided not to proceed with an inquiry. Of course they didn't. Of course they didn't. Look, Scotland Yard is just as corrupt as the rest of them, in my opinion. Not the rank and file officers, folks. That's not ever what I mean. Those are good people, the agents and the people that are working every single day to compile these dossiers, and then they kick them up the ladder, and these unelected bureaucrats shut it down for whatever reason. And there's no oversight. These people don't answer to anybody. They run around with just about all the powers you could possibly imagine, and they are able to let people off, arrest people, decide who's going to prison forever, decide who's going to get off on a loophole, and that's just normal business for the justice systems around the world, even in the Western world, especially nowadays. We expect dictatorships to be corrupt, right? We expect North Korea to be corrupt. We expect China to not give you a fair shake if you go on trial. But if you're in the United States, you're in the United Kingdom, you're in Australia, you should be getting a fair shake when you go on trial. This is the Western world, folks. If we can't get a fair shake when we go on trial, then what the hell? How is anyone ever going to have any confidence in the establishment as a whole? Because when there's a two-tier justice system in effect, well, that never ends up good for anybody. That never ends up good for anybody because animosity begins to be built. And once animosity is built, eventually it bubbles over. It is understood the complaint did not include any criminal allegations against the prince. Both in the UK and the United States, prosecutors failed to pursue evidence of Epstein's sex trafficking that was presented to them, Mr. Boies said. And it's 100% true. Look what happened with Maria Farmer. She came out in 95, 96 and told everybody what these people were about, what Epstein was about, what Ghislaine Maxwell was about, who Les Wexner really was, who Abigail Wexner really was. And what happened? Nothing. Nobody listened. Swept it under the rug. The upper echelon at the FBI, we're not going to pursue that. They don't have to give a reason why. They just don't do it. And they wonder why nobody believes a word out of their mouths at this point in time. All right, folks, if you'd like to contact me, you can do that at Bobbycapucci at protonmail.com. That's BOBBYCAPUCCI at protonmail.com. Also, if you would like to help support the podcast, you can click on the GoFundMe link inside of the description box. All right, folks, I'll be back tomorrow with the morning update and, of course, the first segment of the Santa Fe trip. And we'll be doing a usual daily drop. All right, folks, hope you all enjoyed your weekend, and I hope you're all ready for the fantastic day of Monday tomorrow. All right, I'll talk to you all in the morning.